here is something very, very interesting. I made this video, not this exactly, but this very similar topic video that how does Node.js work? Turns out it was made 2 years ago and I forgot to post it. Yep, literally, I never posted it. I made the video and I just forgot about it. And yesterday I got to reminded by a student that, hey, this, do you have any video like this? I said, I have a video, searched it and couldn't found it. And then I found it in my backup and I realized this is the good time to remake that video instead of posting that old one. So hey there everyone, my name is Hitesh and let's get started. And in this video, I'll walk you through behind the scene basics of how Node.js work. Usually you use Node.js for a lot of things. Maybe you're learning React, maybe you're learning Node, or maybe you're learning Vue, whatever you're learning. Chances are high that you're using Node.js or any similar library for that matters. And even these days, if you are learning the core JavaScript, you are not learning the JavaScript in the browser itself, you're using Node.js to execute that. So what makes Node.js Node.js, how it works, the internal model behind it, and this video will help you to understand the behind the scene working of Node.js. You'll appreciate it so much and how powerful that is. Not only that, once you understand this behind the scene mental model of Node.js, you'll be able to write so much better code with the Node.js, whether that's a file system access or a network access. The functionality is repeatable. It just repeats everything exactly same with different libraries, but behind the scene working always remains same. So welcome to the video where we are going to explore behind the scene of Node.js, how it works. We'll be writing some portion of the code. You don't need to understand that code. You just need to see, okay, this is the code, this is the portion where it works. And then I'll break it down step by step in a diagrammatic manner that how the each steps are being done. It will help you to understand a lot about the computer basics as well in case you are not familiar with that. But yes, I'm still laughing that why I didn't posted that video. I need to dig up with that. Anyway, so let me share my screen first of all with you to actually get you understand all that. So I'll just move this one a little bit. All right. So let me first share that how, first understand the scenario. What we're trying to build is we are trying to build a web server with Node.js. This is the most easiest thing that you will be doing. And a lot of people use libraries like Express and all these other things. We are not using that. I just want to show you how corely it is done and what are the important parts and pieces of that. And later on, you can use those libraries and those basics and all of that. But I want to show you that how it is being done in the world of Node.js so that later on we can break it down and understand how it happens behind the scene and in the computer networks and basics, how it is all done. So that's the portion which always excites me the most. All right, so first of all, let me share the screen. So this is our screen. This is the code file. I was working on some other stuff, so then I realized I should make this video. So let me walk you through that how it is being done. That's the most important, easiest thing. So Node.js, you might have seen that, hey, you have these library access. So I can just go ahead and actually require these libraries. So if I go ahead and say, hey, I want to require these libraries, a lot of libraries are available for me. So require, and there is one special library known as HTTP. There is a very similar library which does almost similar kind of thing. We'll talk about that, which is a net library. We're not interested in that. And I'll just go ahead and store a reference of it. So I'll just go ahead and say, hey, const, and let's call this one as HTTP. Feel free to call it whatever you like. Why and how I'm able to do this? Because Node.js allows me to have the access of this library. I'll walk you through with the Node documentation that is super important for that. But give me a minute on to this part first. All right, so let's just say Node.js gives me access to this. It would be difficult to say that these are modules purely, but let's just say these are labels because this is something which actually can control your network of your computer. And JavaScript, trust me, has no capability of controlling either your network or your file system. This language doesn't do that. For that, you need languages like C or C++. So this HTTP label is actually holding the references of the capabilities of networking. Yeah, that's already crazy for me. I'm very fascinated about this science. All right. So what this HTTP allows you is it gives you a lot of methods and a lot of capabilities. So notice here, it also says the HTTP interface in Node.js. So yes, it's a label interface. It's not your ordinary variable. It has so much of more functionality that you can actually invoke, do so much of the powerful things in that. One of the method that you'll see a lot is a create a server. Okay, server, it's nothing. It's just a computer, somebody else's computer, which is up and running all the time. and is listening for some request. Somebody is sending me some request and I'll serve that. That's why it's called as server. It serves literally. So that's what it has. And what you'll see inside this is usually there is a request listener and a response. So usually this is how you actually kind of memorize this. Don't memorize it, but this is how it looks like. So this is a callback in it. We go ahead and say this is request and this is a response. I'll walk you through what these request and response literally are. I'll walk you through with the documentation as well. This is so much of an exciting stuff. And then you'll say that, hey, I'll actually go ahead and store this entire thing into a variable. So this is going to be const. We usually call this as server. That's how we do it. And obviously, this server actually listen to some port. So you can directly go ahead and say that port, or you can just go ahead and say, hey, port is either from environment variables, whatever that is, or maybe 4000, whatever works for you in that case. Once this variable port is defined, this is just a number. The magic actually comes from the server, which actually go ahead and listen to it. And inside this, you go ahead and pass on this port. This is it. Optionally, you can pass on a callback that, hey, once it is listening or for the first time it actually is up and running, then you go ahead and fire up a callback just like this and go ahead and say either in the curly braces or directly a console log that says something like this. Server is running. So this is your very basic of it. What's more interesting is when we created this server, we can actually have the access of this request and response, which is the most interesting thing in the entire Node.js. There's file system as well, but hey, let's come back. So into this one, you'll notice that this response has a lot of methods and this request has a lot of properties. For example, from the request, I can grab what path user is trying to access. Even with a little bit configuration, I can access its cookies, who is sending me, at what time it was sent, header information, browser information. There's literally so much of information into this, which I absolutely love about it. But that's all about request, the first parameter. But the response is actually a collection of methods, and there's a little more of it. There's actually streams that are coming in. I'll walk you through the exact technicalities about it, which you'll appreciate in a minute. But you can go ahead and find so much of this. For example, I can go ahead and change my status code. That status code becomes 200, something like this. You can set the headers. There's so much more you can do, but mostly at the end of it, you are going to go ahead and say end. And at the end of it, you can go ahead and say bye, something like this. So this end is actually an end of a stream that is being sent from the server to whoever is making a request. So that's the basic. All right, so I'm not going to run this code. This is really basic. Obviously, it's going to work, but there is nothing too interesting here. You could have done this in one line or probably less or more, better, you can say, better syntax by using the libraries like Express. But that's what not the behind the scene understanding of the Node.js. This is all what you have done so far. Now I'll take you back on what is happening and how you should be learning the behind the scene basics of it. We have learned that how we can create a basic server. That's all given to us. But now let's go ahead and walk you through with how you can actually take all of this into the documentation part. So just give me a second. I'll bring this one up. All right. So this is what we have. Okay, so this is the Node.js page, and this is a libuv. We'll come back onto this one. We call this as, I actually not coined this term. It was given in a conference. Libuv and Node.js are onion layers. The more you'll peel it, the more you'll cry. So again, not my words, taken from a conference. Okay, so in the Node.js, most of the time, what people does is either they choose the long-term stability version, LTS, or the current version. They always go into the API docs. No matter where your API docs you goes, you just see that, hey, this is buffer, cryptos, and HTTP module. You usually store and learn from it. Okay, Hitesh talked about HTTP. This is where I should be looking up for that. Like, what can I do? Okay, I can access request.method, request.path. Great way. Great way. I'm not saying that you're doing wrong. This is one of the great way of learning. But what you missed, nobody told you, is how you should be learning the Node documentation first before learning about its modules that are given to you. Yes, these are modules, so you should not be learning from them. Like, you should be learning from them, but not from the very basic. Go onto the home page, look at the top. This is the docs. This is the docs you should be exploring first. Let me walk you through how to explore this. So click on the docs, and this is where all of the references, guide, ES features, and everything is available. This guide is the least read by most people. Even I've seen the level 1, level 2 engineers don't read about it. we are blessed. We are on YouTube and I have my own time to read about it. That's why I go into it. So go into the guide section, and this is where you see the general guide, the Node.js core concept, and the module related guide. What I have found is there are some people who learn and study about it. They want to learn about the Node.js core concept, so they'll go into this one. Again, going directly into this one, I found that it's not really ideal to learn. They are little higher level concept. If you request me in the comment section below, I'll try to make separate video for each one of them, which will be again super long but very, very fun. But we are not gonna go into the core concept. The core concept, still it is core concept, is the module related guide. One of the guide which I actually love is this anatomy of HTTP transactions. So they literally dissect each part of what happens in the HTTP request, which I'll also do. But notice here, there is so much packed knowledge here. Once you understand this piece of information, then you understand everything, how file systems are accessed, how crypto modules works, everything in Node.js. Because trust me, your JavaScript is not capable. JavaScript is not at all a capable language, but it's the Node.js APIs that makes it so much capable of doing so many things. So if I go ahead, click on this, they actually break it line by line. And a couple of points which I would like to mention here is, first of all, notice here the language which says, we also assume you have a bit familiarity with the Node.js event emitters and streams. Yes, you should have, but don't worry, I'll explain you what that is in a brief so you don't have that much of requirement. Notice here they break it line by line, that how the create server works and all of this, how the methods, URL, headers and all of that work. We'll not go into the request body because that's also another beast to actually discuss about. Errors we are probably not going to talk about in this video, but I'll talk about the basics of how the response headers are being set, or how the general connections and everything is being done, and where does this libuv actually takes part into this one. So this is really something very, very interesting that I'll walk you through. So, okay. So this is the portion where I'm taking all of my references and notes. This definitely takes a little bit of interpretation. I'll probably discuss them in some another video, but here, let's go ahead and understand this, not from the notes perspective, but from the interpretation perspective. So I'll go back here. So this is my iPad, and we'll try to see that how this is all being done. All right. Now, one of the things you need to understand that how the server-client relation works and where your computer comes in, where the Node.js comes in, and a whole bunch of other things. So I'll use a basic diagram for this one. So let's go ahead and work on with this one. So let's just say this is your client. All right. Again, please excuse me, my bad drawings and all of that. I'm not really crafted in that. Okay, these days, every request comes from mobile. So we'll just go ahead and say this is the mobile. And this entire thing is your server. So yep, that big of a stuff. This is your server. Okay, why this big of a server? No, servers are not really that big. They are just a computer which is up and running all the time. But since there's so much of concept going on, that's why I need a bigger diagram for this one. So let's just say there is a request that comes up. So usually the request that comes up to any computer or any kind of server like that is going to come up on port 80. It's usual, but you can obviously go ahead and change that. Here in this server, there is a long request of, there's a lot of ports, more than 64,000. And we have to make sure that on one port, we are addressing the situation that, hey, there might be one request that might comes up, and we are listening on that. And that's why we say that we are listening on the port number 4000 or something. That's actually happening in the development segment only. You never ever go into the 4000 because all the requests by default comes up on port 80. And when you actually spin up your servers, like you might have heard about PM2 or Nginx or all these kinds of servers, Apache, it's their job to actually listen to the request and then redirect into your application. And you can configure them that, hey, my application listens on 8000, 4000, whatever that is. But the ideal interface on the top always listens to port 80. That's the basic computer science. Okay, now what happens after that is, we'll change the pen. We'll go with the blue one. Okay, so this portion is actually a computer. Okay, I'll just call this one as literally as computer. Okay, really bad, but this is computer. And another one, we need another pen, the green one, because that's the node. And this is the portion where your Node.js works. And we need another one, probably yellow one. This is the portion where your JavaScript works happen. Yep, that's how the entire system is divided. And if you'll read this, this entire thing happens like that. Okay, so your Node.js doesn't have the default capability to have the networking access because, hey, end of the day, this is JavaScript. JavaScript don't listen to the ports. It has not the capabilities to have an access to your interface card, which is known as your network card. So your NIC or your network card is your core computer thing. It is not going to be read by that. And this is exactly where a new thing comes into the picture, which is known as your libuv. So your libuv library is majorly in C, or I'll just walk you through with that. Majorly in the C, but this is where the libuv comes into the picture. So this is a multi-threaded platform support and blah, blah stuff. But if you look at the documentation of this one, and I just want to see the design overview, there's so much onto this. And when people actually say that, hey, can you explain me libuv? They always go, hey, libuv is a library which is in the Node.js, has a thread pool, has a epoll and all of that, event ports. Yeah, that's great. That's great. You understand about the IO operation and all of that. But what you don't understand is where does it comes into the picture? Because this is a library which is an interface between your computer and your Node.js. Your computer understands the networking requests that are all going to come in, but somebody needs to pass on these requests to Node.js. That's where your libuv comes into the picture. That's the first part of behind the scene in the Node.js. Now you understand that part. We'll not peel this a layer more because, as I said earlier, libuv and Node.js, onion layers, the more you peel, the more you cry. So this is the basics you should know, basics of it. Now, whenever there's a request that comes up, this request is not into the text format. It is not something like, hey, slash Hitesh or slash login. This is not how it works. It actually comes up into streams of data, and this data is a bytes of data. So bytes and streams, these kinds of words, you are going to hear a lot about it. Now, if you want to have an access of this, you can technically. That's a stream of data, and for that, net library is available in the Node.js, but we are not interested in that. So that is why we use another library which can actually talk to there. And in the Node.js, we saw that there is a library which was written to me, and that's where your HTTP library comes up. This actually converts this into literal strings that, hey, I don't want to deal with the strings and bytes and all of that. I'll just go ahead and work with the strings. So I'll just go ahead and say string. So to understand the strings, we actually go ahead and directly talk to the string and HTTP library. That's the part of it. Okay. Now, a couple of more things which are there. So whenever a request comes up, this libuv library actually has some interesting things going on. It actually go ahead and convert your, we'll go with the yellow pen. It actually is going to convert into two boxes, the box number 1 and the box number 2. This box is going to be majorly utilized for an incoming section, and this box 2 is majorly utilized in the outgoing section. And in case you haven't got hint yet, yes, these are literally your request and response. The thing that we saw in the code part, where is my code part? Here is my code part. The one we said ideally as request and response, yep, these things, these exactly are just boxes. And yes, they are boxes, literally boxes. The first box and the second box, literally, they are big JavaScript object. Yes, and this guy also is a big JavaScript object. That's it. And the entire request that you have consists of a lot of properties, from where it is coming up, what are the headers, and a lot of information. And most of this is actually inside this one, and they are props, or also known as properties. Because we have to just extract the information. That's why they are in the request. And there is no such thing in the entire Node.js which calls them always as a request. They actually have different names for it, that how this actually is being done or called. If you'll study this a little bit, you'll find that, hey, create servers and event handlers. And if you listen to this, there it is an instance of incoming messages. So they are calling it as literally as incoming messages, not a request. They call it as incoming messages, which you can study more that how this actually works, remove headers, send dates and whatnot and all of that, but we'll not go into that much of depth. Just wanted to prove the point that all of your methods, URL, we call it as request, but we can call it Superman. There is no such thing which is stopping us. They are an instance of incoming messages. And in this incoming messages, what we have is majorly properties. Yeah, that's what it is. On the other hand, the next thing that you see is the response that you send. This is majorly comprises of methods. Yeah, They are mentioning this in the documentation itself. That first one is majorly properties, the second one is majorly method. It's not like they don't have any methods or properties in each other, but yeah, majorly constituted of methods. And one of the core method that actually everybody needs to take care of is the dot end. We saw that in the one as well. This is the method which is actually at the very end of your stream. Yes, that's why they say you should know about the stream, because your response is a stream chain. You first send the status code, then you send the JSON response, and then you end it so that the other guy knows the stream has ended there. That's why this is most important, and that's why you end it at the very end. Since majority of the people work in libraries like Express, they have never seen that end, because Express does it automatically behind the scene. Probably will someday talk about the Express behind the scene. That's also very fun. But coming back. Now, the most important part is coming back onto the part. Now you understand bits and pieces of it. Coming back, now we understand that, okay, this is all is happening. But when we create the server, this request and response, all of that, how does that triggers? That's also a very big mystery, that how it works. So what happens in the JavaScript, there are event emitters, which actually we saw that, hey, you need to understand about the event emitters in the stream. That's where the portion of event emitters comes into the picture. So in the JavaScript, all you do is you define different routes and what happens. So for example, there is a route. Let's just write it. So you wrote a route of /Hitesh, and you also wrote a route for Hitesh and then Insta. And of course, how can we forget YouTube? So you wrote a route, and on this, different thing happens. So here probably you show profile, and here you actually talk to database, talk to DB, and get some data. And here you talk to DB, and then you post some data in your database. So whatever that happens, that's actually your core JavaScript capabilities. And you never run those functions, because if you take a moment and think about how JavaScript executes the thing, it's actually single threaded. So, and it's a constant execution. It keeps on executing. The moment you save the file, if you have put some parentheses around it, that will execute the code, but you never do that. You don't execute your file. You execute your file when a request comes to you. So yes, this is another job of this libuv, to find out of the properties that, hey, you know what? Somebody's requesting a URL of Hitesh. So what should I do? This is where it emits an event. And it's the job of Node.js to actually look into your code file through the JavaScript that, hey, somebody's requesting this URL. And based on that, it actually executes your function. So it keeps everything in the memory, sort of. That's very fascinating, that you don't execute your code. You execute your code on some event that happens. Already so much is happening behind the scene. This is what event emitters actually comes into the picture. So you go ahead and execute this code. Not only you execute this code, the moment you actually take all of this code, this Hitesh, all this code, so I'll just use another pen, something, yeah, green would be good. So here also you execute this. So execute this by using parentheses. Yes, these squiggly lines, which I'm not able to put as parentheses, these are execution. And it's the Node.js who execute that. That's why they are in green. Node.js execute this, Node.js execute this, and Node.js execute this, but not only execute this. Here's the most crazy part that it took me so much time to understand this. Node.js actually literally take these objects and gives you access in each one of them directly here. So how should I do this? So they actually go ahead and inject your request and your response into this. And that's why in each of this, you'll be able to see request and response. Yeah, so much crazy thing. So imagine what is happening here. A request comes into your servers. It's in the bytes, and it is being converted into string by libuv. It actually tracks all the request headers that are coming in. Then it's crafting an object out of it, yeah, behind the scene. And it insert all the objects into it, properties like your request headers, your browser information, your IPs and whatnot, all this information into this object. And then it also emits an event that, hey, you are looking for a /route. Out of this object, it picks it up. Then Node.js looks for an equivalent function that should be executed, adds this request and response, this object up here into this places. And then once you are done, it actually streams that response back. You have no idea about it. Gets into the libuv again, and then it transmits it back to the user. Yeah. behind the scene of Node.js. This still bothers me so much that so much superpower. And imagine JavaScript is doing nothing. It just is an interface. You're literally doing majority of work in your libuv, so it's majorly C, C++. All you're doing is writing what should happen. And if this would not be JS, it could be any language. It could be any language. But since JavaScript is one of the simplest one, that's why we write majority of our code in JavaScript and call it a day. But hard work is done by the Node.js. Imagine so much of injection into the knowledge, so much of the things that is being done. So that's so much already an intense of a work, but I'm glad that I didn't uploaded that video 2 years ago, because I think I'm able to explain it much more easily now. And probably I'll do that. Probably more explanation is required. But again, you get the idea how the Node.js works behind the scene now, and so much is happening. Now, once you actually understand this, so let me walk you through again. Once actually you understand this portion of it, that hey, this is how it is being done, and you have the idea about this mental model that, okay, anytime I try to access, so this is actually an interface. Right now, we talked so much about the HTTP interface only, but this could be a file system interface. But hey, the mental model remains the same. In the file system, there might be another library which gives you access of the file system. Node.js does ton of work for you, and you just calls your JavaScript, add some methods into it. Probably we'll talk more about all these things. If you wish, let me know in the comments. But this is the basics of how Node.js works. Now, let me also walk you through with a little bit of behind the scene into the docs as well. So hey, we need to study about that. And now you'll be able to understand a lot about this doc. So let me walk you through. So first of all, it says create servers. And now you understand why it says event emitters and streams, because hey, that's what the code running part is. So Node.js server application, by using the create server, we know that the function that passes create server is called once every HTTP request that's made against the server. And so it's called request handler. Yeah, that's why it is request handler. It serves on the request. Okay. When HTTP request hits the server, Node calls the request handler function with a few handy objects for dealing with the transaction, request and response. Literally takes those objects, inject them into those methods. That's what they are saying. In order to actually serve requests, the listen methods needs to be called on the server. In the most cases, you'll need to pass a listen port number, blah, blah stuff. We understand that part. This is where they actually mention that Node.js make this relatively painless by putting a handy properties into the request object. This is the line. This is what makes your life easy, so much of the so much. And again, request is an instance of an incoming message. That's what they're saying. The method here will always be normal HTTP method, verb, get, purpose, whatever that is, and request and headers. So there's so much into your request that you can just keep on extracting, keep on digging. Yes, you can extract your raw headers and all of that. I have deliberately skipped the part of request body and errors because that's a different beast and probably we need a separate video to talk about it. But this is what is happening. And then when sending a response body, notice here it says, this is the portion I would like to bring your attention to. Notice here it says response.end. This is a stream of response that keeps on coming. You can keep on writing, keep on writing, keep on writing. And that's where libraries like Express makes your life easier because this is not programmer friendly. Keep on writing this much of this syntax is really bad idea. That's why that library comes up and allows you to send response in JSON and all of that. But on and all, look at this. Since the response object is a writable stream, we'll probably talk about more if you wish into streams more, but it's just a stream, just like a water stream. It keeps on coming until you hit the end. The end function on stream can also take some optional data to send the last bit of the data. But it is short, it is last bit, but you can send more of to it. But given the fact this is the end of it. Again, there's a whole different talk that can be done about the errors and echo servers and whatnot. But you get the idea that what I'm talking about and why I call this as a gigantic behind the scene of Node.js. I hope you have enjoyed this video and now you'll be able to appreciate more when there is a Node.js, whether that's in React or Node.js or wherever that is, that how much work actually you are doing with the Node.js. I'll probably make more such videos of behind the scene if you enjoy them. Please do share them. I only get the notification through the LinkedIn that you are sharing them, you are appreciating the work. That motivates me to create more such behind the videos if you like them. Otherwise, I'll stop doing it. I have no intention of making videos which nobody is watching. So please do support and share. Subscribe if you are enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. So let's go ahead and catch up in the next video.